All right, so next question. How do you guys perceive vulnerability? What's your idea of that, male and female?
For me, I think that being able to let your guard down around somebody where you don't feel like you'll be judged by bearing your inner child, maybe your past traumas. I think that in the beginning, you always have your guard up, especially if you've had some past traumas and you don't want to show anyone your demons because then they could potentially use them against you. I feel like men that I have dated have had a harder time coming out of that shell to be vulnerable and feel like it's a safe place where they don't want to get ridiculed. A lot of guys have a rejection fear. And so, I think it's really important to be vulnerable. I think a lot of relationships would last longer if men especially were more vulnerable.
I mean, I think so too, but on the flip side, the problem is because I have a really tough exterior, it's hard for me to allow myself to be vulnerable with anyone, let alone a significant other. The problem that I've had in the past is that once you allow yourself to be vulnerable and let someone in, then they use it against you later, and that's a problem. So then the wall goes back up. Then you
Even higher.
then you become
Each time
more
higher.
distant and just you detach because like how dare you? You know what I'm saying? Like
And it makes it harder for the next person. that
yeah,
comes along.
exactly.
Like, why
So
are
the
you
wall
so guarded?
yeah,
Why
it gets
why are you
higher
so
and higher.
shy?
Yeah.
So vulnerable, we're defining that as exposing yourself and your deepest insecurities. Like this is my damage. These are the
Being
thing,
open and
right?
honest with your partner.
And
about
setting that on
whatever.
the table
My fears. These
for the wrong person
Yes.
is like, okay, now I know this, so I know how I can control and I can manipulate with this being exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
That
That's
is unfortunate.
some evil
It is
behavior
unfortunate.
there. Yeah.
That's why relationships end a lot of times.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, but I do, but I'm sure y'all would agree. Like, it's super key for that element to have that, to possess that in a relationship.
I don't think you
think
truly
so.
know a person until you get beyond that border.
But I
It's how
think
that comes down. You can see on the other side.
when for me, before I allow myself to be vulnerable, I have to know that I can trust you. Comes back to trust.
Right.
That whatever I give you emotionally or whatever the case may be, like I need you to protect that. You don't use it as a weapon against me later on. I need to feel like you've got me and that you're going to lift me up, not beat me back
As a
down.
result, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it brings my inner child out once I've let that wall down and they can see all of me. I can be goofy, I can be silly. Up until then, I'm just like, what do you want? Who sent you? Where did you come from? It takes a while for all that to really
Yeah.
play itself out because you really don't know someone until you've had an argument with them, until you've traveled with them. Like there's so many things that come out, and so the wall it starts to chip away, and everyone has their own timeline of when that happens in every relationship. But once it's down, you're wide open for injury. You're wide open for heartbreak. It's a very scary place to be. So, and then the more you get damaged, the higher that wall goes up. The higher the wall goes up, and it gets to the point where you get so comfortable in your own peace and your own solitude. You have this wall. No one's getting in that.
For sure.
That's really sad.
It's a fortress. Yeah.
This
And
is
the older
like
you get, the worse it is.
Exactly.
this is like so cliche, but it's like that's where the love is. That's where the true relationship is in that like
That's
Right.
where it
that
should
the,
be.
being
Absolutely.
being able cracking that heart open. It's the only way. It is the only way that a flower comes, that fruit comes, is from the seed being cracked.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are not willing, I personally feel like a huge issue in relationships today and people finding a mate is that game of like the shield and the sword of like, oh, I'm not gonna let somebody
For sure.
right. Like
Yep.
instead of just being like, I don't know, I'm a fucking hopeless romantic. I'm like, here's
Me
my
too.
heart. I
Me
love you. I love your energy. I love everything. I'm out here.
too.
I'm out here. If you hurt me, I'm only going to grow from that. I'm only going to grow from that experience. I'm going to become wiser. I'm going to see the fox next time. Like that's the case, but you're not going to stop me from wanting to be here on earth and experiencing love and just being my true self and being like, hey, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is what hurts me. This is what doesn't. And if you move forward and you make a move, this is just the journey.
Yeah.
It's just the journey. That fear, like you're saying, it's scary. It is. That fear of like being hurt is stopping people from experiencing love.
It took me an entire year to get over a really bad breakup. And
We
I
gonna get
lost
hurt.
30 pounds. It's not just heart. It's almost like a sad feeling when you lay down, right? It changed my entire daily. I couldn't leave the house. Like it gets, so for some people, just they literally let it all out, and then it just doesn't come back. It just doesn't come back.
I felt heartbreak over and over again.
For
And it's,
everyone handles it differently.
yeah.
It took me a whole year to even start dating again. Like as soon as I met a guy after that, hey, good morning. You're lying.
Right. That's
Nothing,
wrong.
and
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
But you know what? Even if you know my heart's been broken, I'm gonna love again. I'm still willing to love again.
Right.
I will try again.
Yeah.
Which is
And again
amazing.
and again.
Which is amazing. And I think you should. I think the unfortunate part is that some people by default, they'll have an experience where, their vulnerability was used against them, and now their wall is higher and it's thicker, right? But they don't realize that that's happened until they're into the next relationship, and then it's like, oh shit, like I don't know why I'm unable to really connect with somebody.
But just because the person previously showed you that, it was a bad situation for you to be vulnerable to them, doesn't mean you won't meet someone else and immediately feel comfort.
Absolutely. True.
And, have them just embody the goodness where you just feel that you can be expressive and that you can
Right.
let that guard down and,
Yeah.
and be your authentic
No, for
self.
sure. I think people, if they have an experience and they actually take the lesson out of that last situation, if they took the lesson out of it, then they won't go into the next situation more ignorant.
Right,
Like
right.
they, because
that lesson.
correct,
The
because
next
they
one
got
could be a
that.
new lesson.
Right.
'Cause every guy I've ever dated has taught me something very different.
Yes. And just accepting, hey, when you interact with another human being who comes from a different walk of life, from a different experience, this person is bound to hurt you, not even with ill intent.
Correct.
Right.
It's just that people are moving. When you come here, you are a selfish human being. You are moving at your best interest for survival. It is not that your movements or what you've been taught to do for survival is with the intent of causing pain to somebody else. And so as each human being comes into your house, or into your life, just the acceptance of, I don't have them on this pedestal, that this person is here to only make my life better, not to challenge me, not to hurt me. That is going to happen. So when you say going with the lesson is this: people are going to hurt you. They're going to disappoint you. They are
Sure.
going to let you down.
Yeah.
It is not with ill intent, and sometimes maybe it is. But if you have that mindset going in, you can have a little more grace and a compassion with just the human experience.
Yep.
There are biological reasons that people are going to do that. There are environmental reasons that people are going to do that. There is so much
Social,
chaos
financial,
and
just-
right. There are so many
all types of
things.
You know,
There are so, but to
Like,
just
yeah,
have this
all that.
expectation that my partner is going to be this perfect addition to my life, that is going to be romantic. This is the fairy tale princess Disney theory
Right.
that has people
Psych.
caught up, right? This
Yeah.
psyche that like, oh my gosh, the second this person harms something inside of me, this is no longer for me. That's just what's going to happen. Just don't put any human beings on pedestals. Do not realize every human being is capable of hurting somebody's feelings. And that's just it.
Right. I think the thing is about the lesson though, is that the lessons can be different though, right? But if you leave that last situation, you get the lesson out of it, you put it in your bag, and now your tool belt is full of useful tools for you to be efficient
Right.
in your next situation, then you're good. Some people don't do that though. Like they'll be in a situation, they get out of it, they don't even understand the lesson that was there for them.
So they're
And
repeating.
they're so stuck on the negative result of what happened with that. They go into the next situation with no more tools in their belt.
I would
So,
love though for a man to be vulnerable. If I can see that, then I'm just gonna, oof, come here, baby. You know,
Yeah.
it just makes you want to
there are men out there that
Yeah.
are so
Be
smart,
more.
they will use that
what
the
use what?
vulnerability. Their vulnerability, they can use that to woo you.
Well,
You know, they
no,
should
you should
there
know
are
if it's
cases up
authentic or
on
not.
game. It's hard for me,
Really?
especially with
No,
Star.
I know when someone is being like authentically like letting me in,
Yeah.
and when they're not.
Like, I don't have a problem with vulnerability, like at all. Like, I'm a very like deep dive person. Like, there's nothing that I won't discuss, especially when it comes to me and just how I feel. Like, I feel like I'm very like in tune with myself. When I feel some kind of way about something, I'm willing to discuss it if that person is willing to discuss it. But you also have to have that, the person has to give you that space to be able to
Right.
do that. The unfortunate part sometimes, like being a vulnerable man, is that not all women are vulnerable
Receptive to
either,
that.
right?
Not
So
receptive to
when you exert that, when you express yourself and you feel like the space is not really there, sometimes they don't do it because they also feel like, well, I'm not vulnerable and I don't want to give that back to you
Right.
because I can't give it to you.
Or everyone's not going to be receptive like you, like, oh, come here and, lay on my bosom and be vulnerable. Vulnerability and opening that up may not be received well because it may be setting off someone else's triggers. I think people just have to be, with vulnerability, you have to be prepared for extremely difficult emotions and conversations.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And being like, hey, I'm going to open myself up to this person, and having, again, an expectation that they respond to it well. We're like, hey, I just want to be open with you that this really bothers me, and expecting this person just deal so gently with your vulnerabilities. We're not at that level of communication. I don't know who mentioned that we're just not there as a society to be able to communicate in that way. So in this conversation of vulnerabilities, there's going to be some tension, there's going to be some conflict, there's going to be some strife in saying like, your vulnerability triggers something in me that doesn't make me soft to that experience because of what I've seen, right? Whether it was with my parents or whatever's going on. So just being able to know that, again, like I said from the get-go, that you're going to meet conflict with this person. When someone's expressing their vulnerability, it's not an easy conversation. It's not going to
Never
be a
is.
kumbaya. It's not going to be soft. It's going to be,
But that's
there
how
are
you grow
emotions that are going to
together.
come up.
That's how you grow
Amen.
together.
True.
That is how you grow
Drag
together.
Vulnerability. Tajji is different. A lot of guys are not. You can't drag. You give them opportunity after opportunity. Like, you could talk to me. You could let's do this. Let's do that. They just don't want to talk about it. Like, for some, with their childhood, the way they were raised, not alpha of them. It's not man of them to talk about their feelings or whatever. Like, you can be the most receptive woman in the world, and they still might not tell you. For
True.
fear of whatever.
We have responsibility too. Like we talked about this in the first episode. Women are scorned as well, and we are not the most receptive, and we have healing to do, and we do need to create a space where we can receive it because we have been screwed over by men in the past, and we're not in a position to hear the same song and dance. But truly, as a species, we all have healing to do, and we do need to create spaces where we're able to break down and be like, look, this is I'm struggling, and it's coming out in these ways, and these ways can potentially hurt you,
Right.
and to remove that like defense of like, I don't want to get played, I don't want to get hurt. So I have trauma too, and I know how to be right. I'm square. I know how to behave too. Right. I have trauma and behaviors too. I can act on my stuff too,
Right.
right? But like I said, it's that shield and that sword, and just setting them down in the middle and being like, let's have this tough discussion that is going to be a roller coaster of
It
me
would be
feeling
amazing if
this.
more people were capable of that.
Even if they
What do we
want to.
need? What do we need to
Some
be
guys not able
capable?
articulate it. Even if they want to, they just don't know how to open it up. They were never allowed to. It's,
A lot of
don't
people,
cry.
right?
We talked about this last time. As a boy, you're not allowed to
Yeah.
cry.
Right.
Just do this.
Yep.
Well, let's get solution minded. What would lead to that? What would lead to more conversations like that?
Well, I'm not a parent, but I guess it would start.
No, not with the kids, with the relationships. It's easy. It's easier to talk to our children, and that's we figured that part out. What would in relationships? how do we start to create a culture where we can show up and we can put down our weapons and we can expose ourselves, and you can find out within the first hour, the first 2 weeks, whether this person is equally yoked with you or not, based on their traumas and their fears.
I have a question for you. Do you feel like you've got a circle of men around you where you can talk about your feelings and things like that? Do you have a brotherhood like with guys that you're around, or no?
Not really.
I feel like it's important to have that as a man.
I think it is important. But if I just really think about it, like I kind of move like a lot on my own,
Yeah.
right? But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm very like self-efficient. Like I'm very I'm very forward in my sorting out my feelings or whatever the case is. Like so I'm very sound in the way that I move, right? But I think but I am that person to a lot of men though.
Okay.
Right? Like so
So you're
Yeah.
a sounding board.
yeah, and it's been like that my whole life though.
Okay.
Right? But for a lot of the guys that I'm cool with, they always come to me and I'm okay, sharing experiences and bouncing that back and forth. But I also feel like that it also benefits me, but it's usually because it's coming to me, and then I'm giving that output, based on whatever it is that we're having a discussion about.
Is your vulnerability well received by women?
I think so. Like I think it's probably one of the main reasons why my connection with women is easy. I don't really have you're not really dealing with ego with me really from that standpoint. Like a couple of them, I mean, obviously I never dated neither one of them, but I've known Ericka Kelly for years, like almost a couple of decades apiece, like, but I feel like we connect because they sense that I'm a genuine person. They're genuine people. Like, so part of my being genuine has to do with my being vulnerable and I don't walk in rooms and egos. Like everybody in this room, everybody outside this room knows that. Like you don't see me and feel like, oh, he's a threat. Like,
Right.
cause I have nothing to prove to anybody. And that's the manner that I move, So
You never felt like you needed to confide in another man for like things that's going on in your life.
not really, no. I mean, I have,
Yeah.
right? But it's not a very common thing that happens.
Gotcha.
Like I'll probably end up, having more conversation with my cousin in New York or something. She's a female, but
The reason why I asked was because
Yeah.
we're talking about men being vulnerable and talking about things with the female partner in their life. If they can't do that with us, is there someone else, like a guy friend or a male friend or a college buddy or a teammate, that you could say, hey, this is what's going on at home. I need someone to talk to as a man. What do you think? You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if you're not one to confide, but they all confide in you.
yeah, but the thing is that if I'm to have a conversation like that with another guy, he has to be similar in nature to me.
Gotcha.
Because if he's not a guy who's not very well versed in being vulnerable or just even genuine or anything of that nature, he's not gonna do me any benefit, which is usually why I find myself by myself. Not saying that there aren't other guys out there like me, but I just don't know a lot of guys like me
Yeah.
where we just sit around and have those conversations. I do it.
Boo.
No, but still, I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know. And I mean, I would love to really, like, I think there's a lot of good guys out there that I know. I just don't know them at that level enough to just be like, you know what, let me pick up the phone and holler at them and see, like where they're at with it. Like,
Honestly, I think women, we tend to be a little bit easier for us to talk to our girlfriends about things.
oh, for sure.
But you do have to have a certain level of vulnerability as well, because women can be snakes and they can turn around and talk about.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
They're
it
worse.
is, I feel like it's
Well,
easier for us. More of a
these days.
sisterhood,
I was
but
gonna say they're worse than
very
men, but-
small.
Yeah, you can't always
get
trust
to
it.
know the real dirt. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
takes a level of vulnerability. If you can't come to my man, there's certain things you only want to tell your girlfriend.
Right. I mean, and I think that's women just in general. Y'all get up and
nature.
go to the bathroom
See, I
together.
want to
Like,
be able to go to my man.
guys don't
first.
do that.
Yeah, screw my
And there's
girlfriend.
things
I want to
that-
be able to go to
there's
my
things that
partner
couples can
and
talk
be
about they
like,
can't tell their
listen.
friends.
Well, yeah. I mean, but I want to be able
I
to
don't
just be
think
like,
that
You should be able to.
Absolutely, you should be able to.
That should be the closest, most comfortable
Your best friend.
relationship
It
that
should
you
be,
have.
That should be, yes.
And although
I
they may
agree.
not understand you, I think just we just have to move forward as a society. We're going to have to start pushing through, like whether it's more therapy in certain communities, whatever it is that helps us articulate these feelings.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get there because you should, the person that you are under the same roof that you are laying in the bed with, you should be able to tell them your innermost
Absolutely.
demons without the fear of some repercussion or them
Exactly.
using it against you.
Agreed.
And even for friends, we feel that amongst females, we know that we have to scope like where we can truly like be ourselves, or this girlfriend, I can really tell her everything. This one might judge me a little bit, or she might feel like she has a leg up, like that nature. I don't know, maybe it's survival of the fittest, just that built-in mechanism of like playing a game. But that can just only get you so far on the journey. When you're not going to be vulnerable, just know you're going to be limited in what you actually experience
For sure.
here as a person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's no doubt about that.